Okay, so have you ever worked on something, like really put your all into it, and then it just kind of falls flat? It's not bad. It's just not, like, amazing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's like when you bake a cake, it looks all perfect and everything, but then you taste it and it's just cake. It's good,
Yeah.
but, no one's like, wow, I need another slice of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually what's so interesting about the source we're diving into today. It takes us all the way back to 1971 to Switzerland.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it seems like a pretty normal day, right? But there was one, well, pretty big thing happening.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
Swiss women were voting.
For the right to vote.
Yeah, can you believe that? Talk about, an important detail kind of hidden away there.
Seriously. It's pretty ironic when you think about it. The source paints this really vivid picture, almost like a movie scene, you know? You got all these men in suits, smoking their cigars, acting all serious, and then you have these women literally fighting for their basic rights just to have a say in their own lives.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the source focuses in on this one woman, and she's holding her ballot. And then she drops it.
Oh, man.
Can you imagine, like, all that pressure, all those generations of women who fought for this moment, and then you fumble it?
I would just die.
Right. But here's the thing. She doesn't freak out. She picks up the ballot, and then she very calmly puts it in the box. It's almost like this quiet act of defiance.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a small thing, but it just speaks volumes about, like, the strategy behind making real change.
Absolutely. Like sometimes the most powerful actions are the ones that disrupt the norm, even in a subtle way.
Exactly. And that's where the source connects this whole scene back to writing. They're saying that crafting a captivating title, it's kind of like dropping that ballot.
It's got to stand out.
Yeah, it's got to disrupt, like, shake things up a bit.
Yeah.
Especially in a world where everyone's constantly bombarded with information.
Oh, I know. It's like you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it's all just noise. And then, bam, something grabs your attention.
Right. And the source gives some pretty funny examples, actually. They take these super boring titles like Why Promoting Equality is Important, which, let's be honest, makes you want to fall asleep just reading it.
Yeah, no one's clicking on that.
Exactly. And then they turn it into something like Women weren't allowed to vote, so
Yeah.
we decided to castrate men. I mean, talk about attention grabbing.
Wow. Okay. A little extreme, maybe.
Maybe a little. But you get the point, right? Like, you need a title that makes people react. Even if it's just for a second. Like, hold on, did I read that right?
Yeah, it's about making them stop, think, and want to know more. It's like a little jolt to the system. Makes you pay attention.
So I guess the question is, are you okay with your writing being just, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want to write something that people actually remember? Something that makes an impact?
I mean, I know what I'd choose.
Me too.
It all comes back to that passion, right? Like, what are you so fired up about that you have to share it with the world? That's what's going to make your writing truly stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Because that energy, that excitement, it's contagious. People can feel it.
So true. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to dive even deeper into this.
And it's like those women fighting for the right to vote. You got to be bold. You can't be afraid to, kind of shake things up a bit, challenge those norms, even if it makes some people uncomfortable.
So true. So it's not just about a catchy title, though, right?
Mm.
The source goes on to say that the writing itself has to be just as powerful. They actually compare it to, like, a poetry slam.
Yeah.
Where every single word is meant to evoke some kind of strong emotion and just leave the audience completely breathless.
It's about creating an experience.
Yeah.
The source actually uses some pretty intense words to describe this kind of writing. Like, it bites, it cuts, it bleeds. I'm not saying we need to start writing, horror stories or anything.
I know, blood and gore.
But there's definitely a lesson there,
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. But how do we actually do that? How do we make our writing bite without, going overboard?
Well, it comes down to being really deliberate with the words you choose. Think about it. Like,
Yeah.
if you say, sunset was beautiful, yeah, okay, it's a nice sentence. But if you say, the sky just exploded with, like, this fiery blaze of orange and purple as the sun dipped below the horizon, oh, that's different.
One is just a statement,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other is like, whoa.
Exactly. One just tells you something happened. The other one creates a whole picture in your mind. You can practically feel the heat of the sunset,
So it's not just about the what, but the how.
Exactly. Strong verbs, sensory details, metaphors, all those tools can take your writing from, like, meh to amazing. And that's where that whole poetry slam thing comes in. You think about a truly powerful poem, it's not just words on a page. It's like an experience.
I'm with you. It's like the difference between reading a recipe and actually tasting the food.
Yes. Exactly. And that's what we should aim for in our own writing. We want our readers to not just understand the words, but to feel them, to have that reaction, to be moved, to be changed by what they're reading.
Okay, so that's a high bar, though.
It is. But it's what separates the good from the truly great. It's like, do you want to just blend in or do you want to stand out?
I mean, obviously stand out, right?
Right. And it takes practice for sure. And it takes
Hmm.
courage. The courage to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there, to write from the heart.
This whole conversation is making me think of something I read about creativity.
Yeah.
It said, like, the most innovative ideas, they usually come from a place of discomfort. Like when you push yourself beyond what you're comfortable with.
Oh, totally agree. If you're always playing it safe, if you're always trying to please everyone, you're never going to create anything truly original.
You'll just get stuck.
Exactly. And, think back to that dropped ballot in Switzerland. It was a tiny act of defiance, but it symbolized something so much bigger.
It was saying, like, I'm here and I'm not going to be ignored.
Exactly. And that's kind of the power of writing, too, right? It can be a tool for change, a way to amplify voices, to challenge the way things are, to really make a difference.
Wow. Yeah, that's huge. But it all starts with the writer, with their intention.
Yeah.
Why are you writing? What message do you want to share? What impact do you hope to make?
Yeah, these are big questions. I think before we even get to those catchy titles or, the beautiful metaphors, we need to get clear on our why.
Our purpose.
Yes, because if you don't know why you're writing, it doesn't matter how good the writing is, it won't have that impact.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we figure out that why? How do we find our purpose?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, and luckily the source we're diving into today actually offers some really helpful advice on exactly that.
So we talked about titles
Right.
and we talked about using really powerful language. But what about the bigger picture? How do we structure a whole piece of writing to keep people hooked? Like, is there some secret formula?
Well, no secret formula, but I think there's a really cool tool we can borrow from fiction, actually. Even if we're writing nonfiction, using storytelling techniques can make your writing way more compelling.
Wait, so you're saying we should just make stuff up? I think my English teacher would have something to say about that.
No, no, not making stuff up. It's more about thinking of your writing as a narrative, as a story. Set the scene, introduce the characters, even if they're just ideas or concepts, and then you build towards this climax or resolution. It's about giving your reader a journey, not just throwing a bunch of information at them.
So instead of just listing facts, we create this little adventure for the reader.
Yeah, exactly. Think of those documentaries that keep you on the edge of your seat, even though you know how it's going to end. Right. That's the power of a good story. And just like any good journey, you need a destination. What's the one thing you really want your reader to walk away with?
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. It's like if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Except with writing, that usually just gets you lost.
Right. When you know your why, when you know your purpose, it gives your writing direction. And then you can use those storytelling tools, the scene setting, developing the characters, to guide your reader to that final destination.
This is blowing my mind a little bit. I feel like I'm finally understanding what makes writing really captivating.
Awesome. I'm glad it's clicking. But remember, the real magic happens when you put these ideas into action. Don't be afraid to experiment. Try new things. Find what works for you and your own voice.
Well, speaking of finding your voice, we did promise a book recommendation for our listeners,
I
right?
did. The book that really sparked a lot of these ideas for us is called Poetry Master by Stefan. And don't be thrown off by the title. It's not just for poets. It's full of great writing advice for everyone.
Yeah, and I love how Stefan ends the book. He just says, be creative. It's short, simple, but it's like this perfect call to action for anyone who wants to write something meaningful.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one last thought. Remember that woman in Switzerland dropping her ballot? What are the dropped ballots in your own life? What are those seemingly small changes you can make that might have a much bigger impact than you think?
That's a really powerful question, and I hope everyone listening will think about that. Remember, your voice matters. Your story matters. So go out there, be bold, be creative, and write something that people will never forget.
Yeah.